talking of cultural awareness, this is really to develop and understand and have a sensitivity to another ethnic group's values, beliefs, practices, lifestyles, and problem-solving skills. This is where we are really trying to get rid of our biases, and we have more of an not a tunnel vision, but more of an open world view to what other people's are. We can compare our values and beliefs with those of others, and we can also then take note of what the different definitions are. For instance, the example of a family in one cultural group is not the same as in another. A family in a westernized culture basically means the mother, the father, and the children, but there are some areas in which the extended family is also part of the family. So when you are going to talk to a mother about breastfeeding, there's no use that you can talk to her if she's in a different culture where the extended family is also important, that you can talk to the mother alone, because her decisions are very much influenced by the grandmother that is part of this extended family. So you have to understand what are the different definitions, and we have to start acknowledging that there are differences, and we need to be aware of what the differences are. The next one is really to look at the cultural knowledge, and this is all essential, and this is where we really acclimatize to selected cultural characteristics, such as the history, the values, the belief systems, and the behaviors of the members of another ethnic group. So we now understand how the cultures are similar and how they are different, and we can learn useful generalizations as a starting point, where we can maybe learn how to say good morning, good afternoon, just in their own language, so that we can build that trust. We can also read about the language, the customs, the health beliefs of people, and become aware of it, so that we can, when we talk to them, we are aware of what their beliefs are, and that we are not judgmental when we hear about that. How we can also do this is we can also start traveling, we can read books, we can look at movies from different cultures. An interesting movie that was recently that I went to see was Parasite, and that was a South Korean movie, where that a lot of the South Korean culture came out of that movie. So that can also sometimes help us. Also attending local ethnic or cultural organization events, for instance, birthday parties, weddings, international fairs at the universities, religious celebrations, to see what the differences are and how people do things differently. Participating in some of these events will really increase the trust that we have. So when we are looking also at cultural skill, we can also see ask questions, seek information in a professional manner. So that is really where we start feeling comfortable with the cultures of other people, and we can use their appropriate gestures during our conversation. We can always be receptive to the cultural differences and responses of the individuals. We avoid stereotyping, interact respectfully with the people of all cultures in a way that they find acceptable. And you are going to, I am going to show you later on hand gestures in a video, where you can see that some of the hand gestures even that we use may not be acceptable in certain other cultures. So this is really where we have to learn, and we're also going to see the learn format later on as to how to ask questions in a manner. When we're talking about the cultural encounters, this is when we start engaging with people from culturally diversified backgrounds. We can go and eat in different cultural restaurants so that we can see what it is that the people are eating. We can familiarize ourselves with their eating habits. We can also read about their customs, travel, and then again, we can preserve their cultural values and health beliefs in all the health-related practices that we are doing without causing any harm to their health. We can also then see how what they believe in their health, maybe their traditional healing practices, how can we respect those, but also tell people how it is important to also have a look at what other treatments may be. So we have to really know what people are eating. We have to know how they store food. We have to know how they cook food before we can really repattern their lifestyles for new, different, and maybe beneficial cooking methods that they are not used to, while respecting their cultural values. And the last one is really the cultural desire, and that is when you become self-motivated to become culturally aware, and being very open-minded when we talk to other people. So here are just some of the differences, and I'm not going to go into too much detail in here, but this is where you can see how there are other cultures, how they differ. Just for instance, the majority American culture believe in human equality, but in other cultures there may be hierarchy, rank, status, authority. So there are some cultures where you're not allowed to talk to the wife without the husband being there. So if you want to do a nutrition education program or a program in a community and you want to do it only with the women, in this community where there is hierarchy and the man has to be present, you will have to also make sure that you get the permission from the husbands that the women can also participate in this. Also very similar, informality, very much at the order of the day in the American culture, but in other cultures definitely more formal. Like I've noticed here in America that you call your in-laws by their name. In my culture, for instance, I'm not allowed to call my mother-in-law by name. I have to adopt by calling her mother, or my father-in-law by calling him father. And any person in my culture, for instance, that are 10 years older than I am, I have to address as aunt or uncle, and not address them by name. Same thing in American culture, the belief is that disease is preventable. But there are some cultures that believe that humans cannot control disease, and therefore they will not seek help, or they will not go to different healthcare providers because they do not believe that is in their control. Confidentiality, the same. Family decision making. If I'm thinking about confidentiality, is very much in the American culture, where in other cultures one person cannot make a decision, the whole family has to make the decision together. So when you want to get people, or get maybe in also again permission for person to undergo an operation or maybe follow a special diet, you cannot only speak to that one person, the whole family will have to be there to make the decision. Even within the American country, there are also different cultures. There are different dietary concerns and eating habits when we look at the European Americans, Southern African Americans, the Asian Pacific Mexican Americans, and we have to be aware of these. Similarly, also the health beliefs that are related to food of the various groups also. And then not only that, also the different religion groups have differences that we have to be aware of when we are in. For instance, if we look at the different communication styles, you will look in table 1511 on page 614. There is sometimes differences in voice levels. In certain cultures, people have to shout or talk very loudly, where in other cultures, people are very respectful and talk very softly. And we have to, when we work in a community, we have to know what their communication style is. The same with eye contact, for example. In certain sometimes in some Muslim communities, women may not make any eye contact with a strange man. They may not shake their hands. We have to be aware of this. Also, the physical space that we have among each other. I know that when I go to a supermarket, I always keep my space or my distance from the person in front of me, where there might be people that will come up and stand right behind me, because that personal space is not an issue in their specific culture. So we have to really be aware of that. There are also certain barriers to cross-cultural combination, language differences, we talked about that, even non-verbal behavior, and we are going to have a look at that. And then also those stereotyping, we should not be stereotyping to say that all people of a specific cultural group will behave the same. Even within the same cultural groups, there may even be differences. There are practical guidelines on page 615 that we will discuss later. But before we continue, I would like you to have a look at the gestures around the world, so that there are some different YouTubes here. The one right at the bottom is a very good one, that you can see how the different gestures can even differ, and how you can sometimes upset a person by your gesture without even knowing that you have upset them. So once you've watched this, we will continue with part 4 of our lesson.